So we've talked about the relationship between demand curves and consumers' willingness to pay. Let's talk about the other side, the supply curve, the producer side, and willingness to supply, to sell, to produce. So as prices go up, if you're selling stuff, it makes it relatively more attractive to be making and selling that thing, right? So I think about a company like GE or Yamaha, or there are these companies that make a wide range of products. GE makes wind turbines, and they have financial services. They make light bulbs. They make all kinds of stuff, appliances. Yamaha makes quad runner off-road vehicles, and they make pianos, right? A wide range of products. Well, if the price of pianos is higher, Yamaha wants to divert more of its production to pianos, because if prices are high, they want to sell more pianos, right? Same thing with GE, and it's even true if you're a pizza place and you find that people are on a health binge and wanting to eat a lot of salad. You're going to start offering more salads, trying to sell more salads if prices are high in the market for salads. So whether you're thinking a big scale like GE or you're thinking a small scale like a neighborhood pizza shop, as prices go up, producers want to sell more, and so we get this upward sloping supply curve. Now, you may recall this supply curve and where it is actually determined in part by the marginal cost curve for a firm. So if this is firm A, I'm going to write MCA. So as we might put a little loop right here. So a lot of times when we think about the marginal cost of making more stuff, for a certain range, and it might be small or it might be a big range actually, the marginal cost, the cost of making one more unit, might be falling. That's when we're enjoying economies of scale, we're building up efficiencies. Each additional unit we want to make, we might be able to make cheaper because we're able to use these technologies that we're at a scale that we can take advantage of that, right? We might be bringing in workers who are specializing in meaningful ways, and it's really helpful. Those things would lead a marginal cost curve to have a downward sloping portion. Eventually, we think of marginal cost curves as going up. Why is that? Well, marginal cost curves eventually go up because we start running into issues. We want to make more stuff. Yeah, we can use new technologies. Those are expensive, right? And so the cost of an additional unit eventually starts to go up. And here an example I think of is, so Amazon, right? The paragon of efficiency in a lot of ways. I believe one of the world's most valuable companies. I don't know if they're the most, but certainly one of the most. I mean, they have a lot of smart people who are figuring out how to do things efficiently, right? Their cost, they're always pushing down their cost of being able to get a product in your hands, delivered at your door. So they were growing. They've grown in huge ways. Headquarters in Seattle area, a lot of people working there, thousands, tens of thousands of employees. It started to get harder and harder for them to be efficient doing everything with headquarters in Seattle. It was hard to recruit enough people to move there. There's some people who want to move to the West Coast. There are other people who would rather not, for family reasons, for weather reasons, for whatever. There's also effects on the housing market nearby, the schooling, all sorts of things where if you're that big, you start to kind of stumble. You start to have bureaucracies building up. It can be harder to move fast. And so that is this marginal cost curve going up. As you get bigger, the cost of one additional unit, eventually you start to kind of stumble over your own feet when those feet get too big, right? And so that's kind of the Amazon HQ2 idea. Amazon says, okay, we're seeing this, we're feeling this, we need to do something about this. One thing to do about that is to not have one headquarters, but to instead have a second headquarters somewhere over in the East Coast, in the middle part of the country. So outside DC, they're making another headquarters complex, partially to alleviate some of these growing pains that you get when you get so big. There's incidentally an operations headquarters being put in Nashville with thousands of jobs that at least they claim the median wage is going to be well over $100,000. Obviously, high-paying jobs, so worth looking into as you look at different things. If you want to stay not too far away, but get involved in a big global company that tends to pay well for that sort of job. But so, okay, eventually we end up with marginal cost increasing because of input prices increasing, because of decreasing returns to scale for different inputs, because of bureaucracy building up and stumbling over feet. So we eventually end up sloping up with a marginal cost curve. I spent some time on that because that's important as we start talking in our next video about equal marginal principle. Let's think about another supply curve. Maybe this is a different firm. Marginal cost of B. What do we notice about that? Well, generally speaking, it's lower, right? It looks like maybe it's downward sloping for a little longer period, and it's below MCA. So what does that mean? It means at a certain price in the market, say here, A is going to want to produce this much, and B is going to want to produce that much. So we see that at a given price, the firm with a lower cost curve is going to want to make more stuff. And the firm with a higher cost curve is going to want to make less stuff. The reason for that, well, the marginal willingness to sell is measured by the height of these curves. They're the same height at those points, right? So at a given price in a market that clears, both firms are going to be willing to make and sell something for the same price. They have the same height of their what ends up being their supply curve at those points. If we force them to be at the same quantity, we would see this firm is willing to sell for a lower cost than that firm. Why? Because they can make it for cheaper. And so that will feed into, this builds off of the idea that the height of the demand curve is willingness to pay. The height of the supply curve at a given point is showing us a willingness to produce and sell. And this will lead us into an important idea, the equal marginal principle, that to do things efficiently, like what happens when we have a market that clears at a given price, then we have firms with the same marginal cost of producing the last unit that they make and sell. But that's an important idea as we go into environmental markets, where we tend to see a lot of market failures and government intervening. We want to keep the equal marginal principle in mind as we get into that. So we'll introduce that in the next video, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.